Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Mentorship Matters. Today, we have the founder of Mentorship Matters on today in Earlene Avalon, and I'll have her introduce herself in a moment. We're back here representing both the bachelor's completion space and the Lowell Institute School to really think through the ways in which mentoring has impacted people in a variety of ways and continues to be an incredibly crucial element of students in either bachelor's completion programs or learning programs, or just early career folks, and just thinking about the ways in which mentoring can play a significant role in helping somebody upskill into the type of work and life that they hope to lead. And so incredibly excited to be joined by two of our academic leads.
Hi, good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Earlene Avalon. I am a teaching professor and academic lead for our healthcare programs, which includes our bachelor's degree completion in health science, our healthcare administration, and our post-bac pre-medical program. And I have been at Northeastern for almost 10 years full-time and about 7 years as an adjunct before that.
Thank you, Earlene. So my name is Kochanek. I am an assistant teaching professor for the biotechnology and the biological science programs. So I am the program lead for those also. I have been at Northeastern for 2 years now.
And as a reminder to folks, my name is Chris Cook. I am the Senior Director of Workforce and Economic Development and the Lowell Institute School here at CPS, and I serve as an academic director over the science and technology portfolio as well. I like to think about how to support students into programs where they can really access the learning and the credentials that are required to upskill into the careers that they want to have and the lives they want to lead. We typically serve students who balance a lot, and knowing each of you personally and where you are now, you also balance a lot in your lives, right? And you play multiple roles. And I think, but there's a special element of being a student who balances a lot. And so for many of our students, they're balancing academics, families in lots of directions, generation up, generation down, their own generation, right? Lots of different competing priorities. They're balancing jobs, and then they're balancing this other task of potentially moving up the career ladder, which people talk about. Getting a new job can be like a part-time job or another full-time job on top of it all. And you all could have chosen to work in lots of different types of academic settings. I'm wondering if, Earlene, if you could talk to us a little bit about why it's motivational for you to work with the students that we have at CPS, maybe describe some of the traits that you see and why it's so uplifting and motivating for you to work at CPS and the types of students that we serve.
Yeah, so when I decided to make a move from healthcare to higher education, I knew right off the bat I wanted to work at the College of Professional Studies. When I was going through school, it took me about 6 years to complete my undergrad. We had some family medical issues. I had to leave my college to come back to Boston to be with my family. And I just felt lost in terms of even how to complete my bachelor's degree. As a first generation college student, while my family loved and adored me and I did them, it was just hard to sometimes come home and say, hey, I need your guidance on what course I should take in this particular semester, because it just wasn't there. And I started as an adjunct professor at Northeastern while working full-time at Boston Children's Hospital. And I knew instantly the students were my community. They were students who went to school, who worked full-time, and who were raised in families. I did the same thing. When I was completing my bachelor's degree, I often held 2, sometimes 3 jobs to help pay my tuition and to help my mother out with household bills. And then when I decided to go back to school years later and do my PhD, I was a mother to a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. I had to work full time. I had mortgage payment, car payments, electric bills, gas bills. Like, I had real adult lifestyle. And so that is what I see in many of our students. I often meet with students for coffee hour. I call them coffee tea hours, just to check in to see how they're doing. Again, not everyone has support in their community or at home. And I think that's one of the best things about CPS faculty, is that many of them have actually walked in the same shoes as our students. So we're able to really relate to some of the life challenges that they might be facing, while also trying to go back to school and better themselves in generations to come.
Earlene, that was a tremendous answer, really inspiring in lots of different directions, and how the current journey of our students resonates so deeply with you personally is certainly something that I know enables our students to feel comfortable with your tutelage and your mentoring as well. And so we'll come back to that, about the role in which how you mentor students, or that you see the role of mentoring. And we'll also come back to, you're the kind of founder of this thing that we're doing, this mentorship matters. And so I want to hear about why you made a decision at the time to frame it this way. But Dawn, I want to turn the same question to you. Why do you work at CPS? What is so motivating about being here?
So I started off actually lecturing at a small community college in rural West Texas. And I was doing that because my husband was full active duty. And so I would teach at night. And what I realized in doing that was that the students were working all day and then going back to school at night. They were there for a different reason than I went as an undergraduate myself. I went to the traditional kind of experience when I went and lived at the dorms and such. And I didn't realize that this other population of students existed until I got there and I was teaching them. And I was so inspired talking to everybody and hearing about what they did all day, how they were taking care of their parents and their children, and working a full-time job and then coming in. There's one time I held a baby during an exam because there's daycare, there's not night care. And realizing that group of individuals that wanted a chance to succeed in their chosen careers, but maybe had a barrier that they just needed someone to care and help, like that to me, I was sold right then and there. When I saw this position at CPS, I thought this is the most perfect position for me. So that's how I ended up at CPS, and I love it here.
Awesome. And appreciating the ways in which I think you're weaving some themes that need to be reemphasized together across the two answers. As a little bit of a tangent, the myth that most of America has a bachelor's degree and goes to college right from 18 and onward has been so proliferated in our society that we need to do things like this to say, actually, that's not the way in which most people access higher education. Less than 40% of individuals nationally have a bachelor's degree. And for most other folks, it's a what we call less linear path, where people go up on ramps and off ramps, they're moving forward. But we don't glorify that other piece of the grinding approach to learning and doing in the way that we glorify this go to campus, go to the University of X and go to the football games that lots of people think college is. But that's not truly, that's such a tiny part of the population's experience to getting a degree, and that many more people are pursuing degrees in the ways that we're talking about right now. And in many ways, I find that deeply resonant to the types of individuals who have helped make America so great over time, around this idea that like people are working really hard all the time and lifting themselves up to take one step after the next in service of their own growth, but also in service of their family's growth. And I think if you really listen to the stories of the students in which we serve in CPS, you would hear that story again and again. A big part of this, though, is to not just understand that it's just about the credential. There are other things people need to do. And Earlene, I'm going to turn the question to you about mentoring and how maybe that's interwoven into this. Last year, when you began this series, you made a decision to focus on mentoring being the element of the conversation.
I think mentoring is such a big word. And sometimes as an individual that might get asked to mentor a lot, you could feel overwhelmed. And so I tell students, you don't have to have a year-long or 2-year-long commitment to be a mentor or a mentee. It could be just having a cup of coffee or scheduling a 45-minute Zoom meeting. And sometimes those bite-sized pieces of mentoring actually work much better than saying, I'm going to commit to a year-long mentoring-mentee relationship, which can be overwhelming for both the student and the mentor. And the mentor can be many different things, right? They can be in your workplace, they can be in your community, in your church or synagogue. Mentors can be everywhere. I think there's different seasons for mentoring. And so when I was in school and I had 2 small children, I was really looking for a mentor to say, help me figure out how to deal with being a mother with all of this on my plate. And so I would often ask individuals who I felt maybe had some good best practices if they would like to join me for coffee at McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts. I didn't have a Starbucks back then, but just to sit down and say, hey, how are you managing? Because maybe I can learn some helpful tips. And then also, what advice do you think you might have for me as someone who might be juggling a lot and trying to prioritize things? So I think mentoring is a key component, but it doesn't have to be all consuming. And I think oftentimes individuals who are considered mentees don't know how to approach an individual who they might want to provide some advice or some mentoring. And so when I created Mentorship Matters, I wanted to break down those barriers and those perceived stereotypes of having to have this intensive mentoring mentee relationship. And I also wanted to make the mentoring accessible. So that's why we did it online and not required everyone to meet in person, which can be a barrier for those individuals who are juggling a lot and might not be able to meet with someone between 9 to 5. And just so students have next action items for what they can do in their career and or their studies.
Earlene, that was wonderful. Really appreciate you naming how mentoring, one of the phrase seasons of mentoring, love that. And I think I'm going to use that in lots of different contexts to talk about, like, right now I need how to get childcare support. Now I need how to approach my first job application. Now I'm in a job situation and there's some conflict that I don't know how to navigate, right? There's all these seasons. And if you're lucky, you get a mentor that can traverse across all those spaces. More likely, you're going to need different mentors along the way. It does make me think about some of your other seasons of mentoring and the types of mentors that you've had in your career. And so, Dawn, can you talk to us a little bit about maybe different seasons you've had and a mentor has stepped in and helped guide you through that season? And so an early mentor in your career or whatever kind of resonates with you.
I found myself in Manhattan and I had just finished off a master's degree. And I really liked the work that I was doing. I really liked where I was at. But what I had realized in going from doing undergraduate research and then doing some graduate research is that I still hadn't found somebody that I felt was guiding me. Like I hadn't found that mentor. And so what I decided at that point was that I wanted to go and I wanted to work in the lab with a primary investigator who was a woman. And so I found a woman scientist who was doing the exact research that I wanted to do, which at the time was neurodevelopmental. And she was specifically working on axonal regeneration after injury. And axonal regeneration is something that was very interesting to my heart because my grandmother had multiple sclerosis. So it was really a good fit for me. I could work on a disease that I was interested in, and I could potentially maybe find the mentor that I had been looking for. And I really chose wisely. I got very lucky. I think at that point, what I didn't know, and I know now, is that I think I was suffering from imposter syndrome. Like I wasn't good enough. Like I didn't think, and nobody had ever said to me, hey, you've got this. Like you can do this. You can be innovative. You can think outside of this box. Like you can do it. And she did. And that pushed me to a level that made me think, you know what? I can get this PhD and maybe I can go on. Maybe I can cure axonal regeneration. That kind of inspiration telling me like I could do it and guiding me. And not only through her guidance, but also that there was people in her lab that also there, I don't know if I can name drop or not anything, but working in Mari Philbin's lab was amazing. And it not only was Mari great, but she also introduced me to Wilfredo Mulatto, and he was spectacular. And I'll never forget, I would sit and I was like, you're saying, Earlene, you said that you have this little coffee tea chat. That's what I would do all the time with Willie. And he would laugh at my ideas. And then he would say, now go figure it out, go do it and keep it simple. He always would say, keep it simple. And that is just something that I try to tell the students that I come across and that I get to be the mentor to. And I say, yeah, you are not in a box. Like you can do whatever you want. That's the great thing about science. We're the innovators, like biotechnology. We are the innovators. Everything that's happening right now in the field, there's so many current emerging trends that are so cool. And when I talk to the students, and I love meeting with the students and telling them, because people think, what can I do with a biological science degree? And I'm like, what can't you do? That's because I had those mentors along my career. And I had other ones too that were really great also. But those two, I think, were the most pivotal for me because they really made me think, you can do this. You are smart enough. You can reach whatever goal that you want to reach. And up until that point, nobody had ever really made me feel like that. And so that's to me, like a mentor should really lift you up and tell you, like, the sky is your limit. What do you want to do? It's not, what can you do? It's like, what can't you do?
You sound like, a little bit of mad science. What can't you do? I love it. That's great. Mentors empower mad scientists. It's great. I love it. Earlene, what about you?
I think growing up my whole life, I thought I was going to become a physician. And I only wanted to do forensic pathology, which is kind of like autopsies and things like that. Because I was first generation, I didn't have a lot of access to individuals who worked in the healthcare environment to say, have you considered A, B, C, D, E, F, G careers? I just saw that one of my favorite TV shows, there was a forensic pathologist, and that's all I wanted to be. And I remember speaking to a colleague at work. Again, I worked multiple jobs when I was in college. And she mentioned that she knew someone who can get me an internship on the weekends at a hospital working in the forensic pathology lab. And so I did that for about a year on the weekends while going to school full time, working the equivalent of 2 part-time jobs. And I realized that I did not want to do pathology. And I remember just having the opportunity to sit in a lab and talk to individuals of all different nationalities who did not look like me, but said, is this something you really want to do? Because you seem like such a people person. Do you really want to be down here in the basement? And I was like, I don't know what else to do. My whole life, my mother has been telling me I'm going to be a doctor. That's all I know. Everybody in my family is telling me, Earlene, you're going to be a doctor. And so someone by chance mentioned public health to me, and I've never heard of public health a day in my life. But that conversation transformed my life. It was a pivotal moment. And it was this really big guy in scrubs and said, you should look at public health. I think you'll be great in that. You like to talk a lot. You like people. You seem like this will be something you are really good at. And I ended up getting a master's degree in public health. It is probably the best decision I've ever done in my entire life. And it was all by having passing conversations with the second in command at the hospital who was doing pathology. But it took some time for me to realize that I do have the power to shift careers. And oftentimes I didn't know what was available to me because this was kind of like the day and age really before the internet. So there was no really going on Google, at least for me with limited access to computers and resources where I can just Google say, what else can I do with my life? None of that existed. So I literally had to hit them and meet people. And because of their advice and guidance, it really just changed my life and changed the individual who I am. Working in community health, working beside people who have had life-changing medical issues, helping people get access to life-saving healthcare, not only for them, but for their children, I know has had a ripple effect, not only on me and my family, but for generations to come for the work that I have done in public health. But truly, I can't name one individual. It was passing conversations with many individuals who told me that I do have the power to not necessarily do what I think I need to do and people are telling me to do, but I have traits that might be better served elsewhere. And that was really it was also very hard for my mother to process that I was not going to medical school, which was a whole nother thing, but it really showed me that I have the power as a young professional to really take the time to figure out my own path in life and not let someone tell me what is best for me. And sometimes, again, that was hard for me to process at the time because you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know anything about public health. And like the teachers I had in higher ed, they were all, but a handful were wonderful. But I never thought I would see myself as a professor until someone else came in my life and said, you have this mentality, this approach about you that I think will work well teaching future generations about healthcare. And again, that seed was planted by an individual that eventually took off and sprouted and now has flourished. So I can't name any one individual. I've been really blessed to have individuals of all nationalities, all genders come into my life and provide like tidbits of information that gave me pause and made me think about where I see myself now, 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years down the line.
There is this concept of whether interactions with folks are mirrors or windows into your kind of who you are. And as you're chatting about that, analogies coming through about what the role of mentoring does, it also means as a person, am I hearing feedback, looking at myself and then making some adjustments, or am I hearing feedback and then seeing pathways there? There's got to be a growth mindset or a future focus kind of element to how you're just positioned to engage with that mentor and take the feedback that I think sometimes gets lost in the mentorship conversation where people think it's a one direction conversation. A lot of the success of a mentoring relationship has to do with how you are positioned as the mentee to receive or consume the information that you're getting. And Earlene, clearly across many contexts, you are a person that is thinking critically about how what I'm learning from the world, from this person, is impacting how I can position myself. And that's just something I think has come through in a variety of conversations. So thanks for highlighting it again. You both run incredibly important programs. Dawn in the biotech, what can't you do space, Earlene in the healthcare and extended spaces, including the pre-med, post-bac stuff. And I want you to just talk to your students for a couple minutes about what generic advice you would give them. What are a few things you think they should go out and do tomorrow to build a mentorship relationship or have a mentee mindset on how they're approaching the work? So, Dawn, let's start with you.
I think in the biotech field, networking is probably one of the biggest things that you can do. It seems like it's a big space, but it's actually a pretty small space in the biotech world, especially here in the Boston area. And so I would definitely encourage students to go out to, there's plenty of different events that involve for the MassBioEd has lots of different events. I would just say, get out there and meet people, talk to people. Besides the networking, because networking is incredibly important, especially in the mentor world, networking is great. As far as somebody in the biotech who wants to go into a career, there's so many different emerging trends and fields and places and pathways that you can go down. Like even just in our own biotech program here at CPS, we have, I think it's 6 or 7 different +1 pathways where students can earn a master's degree in a different field. A biotech degree is a jumping spot. It's where you start, where you want to go. It really just depends. I would say pay attention in your courses for something that you find really interesting, for that spark. And then when you find that thing that you think, well, that's neat, pursue that. Don't just learn about it and walk away. I would say pursue that because that could be where your career takes you. Because you just never know. Maybe it's regulatory affairs, maybe it's gene editing, maybe it's immunology, right? Even if it's AI, right? We offer a master's degree in AI from the biotech degree because all of this stuff builds. Hey, are you paying attention in class to what really excites you? Let's pursue that. Let's really push that boundary and see where you can go with what you want to learn about. I think that's a huge thing. And networking. Those are the 2 things that I would say right now to all the students out there.
Yeah, and I would just love both of those to like concretize. Hey, I'm sitting in a class, we're learning about X in biotech. I find this topic exciting. I bet if you took that topic and you put in a Google topic plus Boston area event, something is going to get pointed to, or Boston area organization, and then do the step of, it could be a cold email to that org, or it could just be going to an event that's on their calendar, and put yourself in rooms where that topic is being discussed outside of your curriculum.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. I think networking is key. Oftentimes students don't know how to start that process. So I always tell anyone who's even mentioning the word mentoring to me is, first and foremost, I think you should reach out to a faculty member that you admire their work, or you're really interested in the course material. Set up a 45-minute either meeting in person or virtual and just say, hey, I'm really interested in this field. How can I learn more? What professional organizations are out there? Do you have anyone you think I should meet with? So oftentimes, I think step 1 is always reach out to a faculty member that you feel you're really interested in their discipline, or they do a really good job connecting with you. I think that's probably step number 1 if you are new to networking. And I think, Chris, to your point, there are so many different social groups out there nowadays. I always tell my students, I use this website called Eventbrite, where you can punch in my background is chemistry. I can punch in women in chemistry. And they will say, oh, we have a meetup on Tuesdays at this biotech lab or this pharmaceutical company, and we're doing this affinity group. And so just put yourself on the invite list. And I know it's hard to step outside your comfort zone, but you have to take that first step. The more you go to events, the more you talk to people, the more you become comfortable doing. I also think, in addition to networking, be realistic. As I mentioned earlier, the people who you want to be mentors have a lot on their plate too. So I am more likely to say I will have a coffee or tea or lunch hour with you, especially if it's virtual, because it allows me to get back into my workday, than to say I'm going to meet with you every month for the next 2 years. If I do quarterly check-ins over coffee, that works well for me. But just, again, be realistic. And I did say, like, the seasons of mentoring, I'm a firm believer in one mentor can't be the end all and be all of everything that you want to achieve. So also look at ways that you could create mentoring circles for yourself. You might have a mentor that maybe allows you to have conversations rather about maybe how to juggle caring for aging parents, or how to juggle working and going to school, or how to deal with being on the lacrosse field, the soccer field, and the basketball field with your children. And so you might have to create your own mentoring circle to get the support and help and guidance that you feel you need. And I think the last thing, so I already went over to networking and being realistic. The last one is be a mentor. You'll be surprised at how many high school students are looking for mentors. And it can be, I just need a mentor who's going to college to tell me what it's like at Northeastern University. And there are so many opportunities for you to get engaged in your local school district. And I know I'm saying high school in particular because high schools tend to also want mentors who are in college or have some type of work experience. So I would reach out to your local school and say, hey, are you doing a science fair or a health fair? Or do you need professionals to come in and talk about their jobs, what it's like to be a college student? I would love to volunteer. So again, I think those three attributes, I always tell my students, networking, being realistic, and then being a mentor is just as important.
Love the challenge to be a mentor and love the advice about being realistic. And I think if we were to like put the 5 points of emphasis across the two of you into like a one pager and send it out to all our undergrads, they'd be incredibly well served. Here's what we need to go do in order to access the world. Personally, I can think of 50 folks that have served as mentors in one fashion or another to me. And so to the idea of not one person can do it all, right? A mentor is not a fixer. A mentor is a person that supports you in a particular way of thinking about a challenge that you're involved. And maybe you're lucky enough to have a mentor that sticks with you for years, right? That's a fortunate mentor-mentee relationship. This next kind of statement might feel discomforting, which is, hey, I'm a student. I sign up to go to this thing. There's mentors in the room. I go in for a goal of trying to connect with XYZ, and that person doesn't respond in a mentor-mentee way, right? You can still figure out what else you can get from the environment. It might not be an individual connection. It's not just about mentoring. It's about being in positions that help lift you up. Sometimes that's in the form of a human being, and sometimes that's in the form of a new organization or a new entity to be a part of. And so don't get discouraged if the thing that you want to see happen in a mentor-mentee relationship doesn't happen. See what else you can gather from whatever it is you're trying to put yourself out there to do.
Chris, I completely agree with what you said about what if you get a brush off in the room from a potential mentor, like what else can you get out of being in that environment? Oftentimes, as I mentioned earlier, mentors are busy. So what I do, even in my position, I'm like, I understand that you're busy. However, do you think you can give me some names of individuals that I can speak to that can maybe tell me about their life experience or how they went through to accomplish what they did? And I find that people are really receptive to that because they're just making a quick introduction between someone who's looking for mentoring or advice with someone who maybe might be more junior in their office or someone that they know socially. So I always look at it as an opportunity to, yes, if you're not able to do it, can you recommend 2 or 3 individuals who might be willing to talk with me for 45 minutes? And if you notice, throughout at least what I've been saying, I haven't said an hour. I've been saying 45 minutes. People are much more responsive to meeting for 45 minutes than an hour. And I don't know why. There's probably some research that shows something about that. But in my friend circles and in my professional circles, more people are likely to meet with somebody, especially if it's for a mentee relationship, for 45 minutes, especially if it's virtual, than an hour. And so just keep that little kind of nugget of information in the back of your mind as well.
I love that. The idea that mentoring, again, is not this long form. I'm going to go on a retreat and I'm going to get mentored. It's like bite size, sometimes consistent, sometimes bite size, and just hearing the piece of feedback and moving forward with it. I'm going to emphasize the importance of gratitude. So like after you meet with somebody, send a thank you, do some kind of follow-up message, whatever the mechanism for communication that you all develop, do that and show that you appreciate whatever time, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, that end of people provide you, that you're appreciative of that. If there's closing thoughts you want to provide here, Dawn, I'll turn to you, and then Earlene, and then I think this has been a wonderful conversation. Excited to get this out to the world. Dawn.
Closing thoughts. Okay, so I would definitely think that mentoring in the biotechnology field is incredibly important. And it's important because experiments fail, right? Biology can be difficult. Sometimes data doesn't add up. And it's really important to have somebody that can say to you, all right, this didn't work, but let's look at it again. Let's think, another way around it. Let's concentrate on what did work. Because sometimes we can't really see what's it called. You see the light through the forest or whatever that saying is. And so I think having a mentor there to help can be the difference between someone staying in the field of biotechnology and leaving, actually. And so I definitely encourage everybody, and back to what you were both saying, maybe you really think that you want to go and you found the person that should be your mentor and they don't have time for you. I think it's a great idea what you just mentioned, Arlene, to ask, okay, can you suggest somebody else? Because sometimes actually you think that person is supposed to be like the one mentor for you, and maybe you actually don't actually click. That's another thing that sometimes happens. And you shouldn't be discouraged. That sometimes that just wasn't meant to be. And so finding somebody else, asking around, to that networking thing, to get back to somebody that is going to help advance your career. I think mentoring isn't just necessarily about advancing specific individual careers too. It's about advancing this entire field. Like I said, there's so many emerging trends in biotechnology, and we need diversity. We need inclusivity. Like we need everybody that wants to have this opportunity to be involved. And I think mentoring is one way to make sure that we keep these brilliant minds in the field.
Love that. Earlene, closing thoughts?
I would just say step outside your comfort zone. And I can't stress that enough. There's been so many times where I have been considered the only one of whatever it is in the room. But it's important to step outside your comfort zone, try new things, talk to people that do not look like you, maybe talk a different language than you. The more that you learn about different individuals and about yourself will all help shape the professional or the student you are or will become.
All right. Dawn, Earlene, that was a lot of fun. I feel like I learned a lot. I'm going to steal some of your language and use it in other contexts to appreciate it. Prior to the meeting starting, we were having a little bit of a conversation about how we are magnifying other people's work all the time. And so I'm going to magnify your work. So anyway, for those in the bachelor's completion space and taking one of our degree programs, we hope that you enjoy this. If you're somebody that's connected to the college and want to get to know us a little bit more deeply or talk a little bit more about any of the concepts that we've put forth here, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I really appreciate episode 3 here of Mentorship Matters in the books for season 2. Thank you for having the wisdom to launch this thing last year. All right.
And thank you, Chris, for keeping it going.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.